Hi, I'm Chantal Buerta, and thank you for joining us today. I want to share with you one of the topics I'm really passionate about, and one of the things that Brand Love teams spend most of their days doing for customers, and that's customer journey mapping. I'm also going to refer to employee journey mapping in this presentation, but the main angle we're going to look at today is customer journey mapping. So, I want to get very practical about customer journey mapping. But first, we need to backtrack a little bit and say, what is customer experience? I think it's a word that gets used a lot. And some people, when they say customer experience, they mean customer service. When they say customer experience, they might also refer to how people deal with complaints. But I want to backtrack a little bit and look at the different components of customer experience. So there's a rational side to customer experience where I evaluate my experiences in terms of whether I achieved my goal, whether it's good value for money, and whether it's the product solves my problem. The second piece is around the emotional part of the experience. Did it make me feel good? Do I feel good about myself? And do I have a good story to tell? And I want to tell you a very quick story just to illustrate this. So I'm a mom of 3 kids, and when they were smaller, it was really hard to go shopping with them. So we have a local grocery store not far from us, and they're fabulous. However, if I look at the emotional impact of a mother getting home after a long day, let's say middle of the week, Wednesday, and domestically I'm quite challenged, so I don't plan very far ahead. So I would get home on a Wednesday afternoon and go to the refrigerator and open it, and there wouldn't be any milk. And if I turn around, there would be no bread. And then I have to get the 3 kids back in the car and go to the grocery store. Now, the grocery store is lovely. It's very convenient. It's not far from my house. But that's not all the journey is about. So when I get to the grocery store, I find parking with some difficulty. And when I get out of my car, I spot another really big, brand new 4x4. And it's one of the school moms. She's just been to the gym. She's beautifully made up. Doesn't look like she's been to the gym. And all of a sudden, there's an emotional impact. So now I'm frustrated with myself. I'm frustrated with the kids. I'm frustrated with how good gym mom looks. And I go into the store and, by aisle 3, because the milk and the bread is always at the back of the store. By aisle 3, I'm really struggling to be a good mother, because by this time the kids have asked me 5 times each whether they can get something from the shelf. And by aisle 5, I say to the kids, I brought you into this life. I promise you I will take you out of this life. And my journey is no longer a journey of just getting the product. It's now about staying a good mother. So by the time I get to join a really long aisle of people getting through the checkout, now I'm angry. Where's the manager? Why isn't there more checkouts open? And I'm angry at the situation, but I'm also really angry at myself. Now, when a company sends me a survey, if this grocery store had to survey me and ask the normal questions, they wouldn't hear this internal dialogue. They would never hear how I feel about myself, because I would just be too embarrassed to tell them the words I used with my kids between aisle 3 and aisle 5, and the fact that I threatened that I'll take them out of this life. So it's about the product, but it's also about how I feel about myself in the interaction with the brand. And then there's the sensory part of the experience. So what do I see? What do I hear? What do I taste? What do I smell? And what do I feel from a sensory perspective? All right, so those are the components of customer experience. And the amazing thing about looking at it from this perspective is we can deliberately design the experience to be filled with different things, to be deliberately filled with the things that we want people to remember. I love Lou Carbone, and this is a quote from him that says, "You cannot not have an experience." So your customers are having hundreds of experiences with your brand. It's much more about how deliberately those experiences are being designed and orchestrated, or how haphazard they are. All right, so I want to just quickly put a lens on for us to look at this as an ecosystem. So we've got our customer value proposition, which is the product and very much the tangible aspects. Then we've got our customer journey, which is what we're going to focus on today. But we also have these interaction channels, and very often brands struggle with getting the experiences consistent across these interaction channels. And you would have had this experience where you possibly went into a store and then later you emailed them, and the auto response you got from the email system was terrible, and then you had to phone them, and again it sounded like you're speaking to someone from a whole different planet, whole different universe to what the brand is promising. And then the area next to the interaction channels is really the employee journey. So, employee journey is really the start of how we orchestrate experiences, and the customer experience is just an outcome of the employee experience. And very often companies have spent a lot of time thinking about the customer journey, but not nearly enough time thinking about the employee journey, and that's so key to creating a magnificent experience all around. And then the fifth pillar there is around the organization structure. And very often organizations have evolved and matured, and it's not ideally designed to create a great employee experience and to create a great customer experience. And pieces of the experience happen across the various silos in the organization. And when one person hands over an interaction to another area inside the organization, sometimes the experience breaks. And that's important to design the experiences so that even if they traverse the structure of the organization, that those experiences have the same goal in mind, that the experience is infused with the same brand promise and the same emotions. All right, so really it starts with getting a good understanding of your experience through a discovery, then defining what you want the ideal experience to look like, designing the journeys, designing your service blueprint that sits underneath the journey, and then doing the implementation of the journeys that have been designed and the innovations inside the journey, and then ongoing direction. Once someone asked me the other day, when is this journey finished? And I said never. Because if you do customer experience journeys and you do employee experience journeys and you create an internal competency, it should just be continuous improvement. So that last piece around directing it like you were the director of a movie, that's really, really important. All right, so with that backdrop, what is a customer journey? It's really just a story. It's a story with actors and stages. Think about it like your most favorite series on Netflix. But the story is seen from the perspective of the customer. So we don't want this inside out look, we want outside in. And look at the journey from the customer's perspective. And the journey focuses on facts, but the journey is also going to focus on emotions and on empathy. And this is the big secret, is you can design emotion into these journeys. So what's really essential before you start touching journeys, that you look at who is your customer, get a really good understanding of your customer, or when you're doing employee journeys, your employee. So create a persona for them and go into empathy mapping, and we'll cover empathy mapping in some other webinars in future. But we want to look at what's important to the person. We want to feel what's going on in their lives. If we do an empathy map, it's much more important capturing the emotion than what it is getting it accurate according to your segmentation. As designers, we want to feel their problems. We want to feel their fears. We want to feel what's keeping them awake at night, and that makes us really, really good designers. The second essential ingredient is what I refer to as the brand experience essence. So that's the secret sauce. If I strip off your logo, how will I know that it's you? If I stack you up against your competitors, if I look at a form or I look at any of your artifacts, how will I know that it's you? So this is like the perfume that I can spray on every system, every letter, every person inside your organization. And very often, brands have not articulated this. They do not have a one or a two liner that if I wake someone up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I say, what is your essence? What is the experience you're trying to create for customers? They cannot articulate that. So that's really important that you spend time articulating this. All right. So now, if we go into the customer journey, just think of this as a road trip, and while we're facilitating this, we want to take people through the questions of what's going on right now, what's happening, what happens next, why, what happened before, what is the customer feeling, what time has passed. And like a journalist, we want to know exactly what happens in this journey. Where did someone come from? Where are they going to? And very often when people do journey maps, they focus on the pieces of the journey map where they have control over it. And that's not really the point. You need to look at this from the customer's perspective. Map the white spaces. Map the things that you might not have control over. Like my previous example of going to the supermarket, grocery store. The grocery store don't own the public parking, but it's such a crucial part of my experience. It can make or break that experience if I'm not able to park close to the store with 3 children. All right, now, some of the aspects that you need to pay attention to and some of the terminology we use is we've got our persona that we've spoken about. Then the stops in this journey, the things that happen in this journey, I refer to that as moments. And then not all moments are created equal. There are these moments of truth where I make a decision, where I decide to stay or to go, where I decide to choose your competitor over you. And then we need to consider the emotions. So what are some of the natural ups and downs in this journey, and what are the emotions I really want to evoke? And then there's also, the journey isn't just, I don't take a single road. I might take multiple roads. I might take a back road to get to the answer that I'm looking for. So these interaction channels are really important. And very often, companies start creating really complex journey maps, and they map the digital journey and the in-store journey and the electronic journey and the paper journey, and they kind of lose themselves. So I really recommend to keep it simple. Map one channel at a time and then layer it and make sure that you design consistency into these journeys. All right, so in these moments, my journey map, I want to look at what's the customer's expectation of this moment. And sometimes they're not going to have expectations, but we can make some assumptions about their expectations. And then really what we want to design is how do we exceed their expectations and how can we fail their expectations? So when new teams are trained, they're very much trained on the standard operating procedure. What is the process? What should happen next? Very rarely are they trained on what can go wrong. Now, if you had to bring new team members on board and you train them on what can go wrong and how they can design the misery out of those moments, you're going to win. Because most people don't get the experiences perfect. I've just come back from a tour to the USA and I spent time with the Ritz-Carlton and I spent time with Zappos. And you know what? On both these visits, a lot of things broke in the experiences with those brands. But it wasn't about just the breakages in the experience. It was about how people recover. And clearly I could see that people were exceptionally well trained to ad lib and to do what we call real-time design in those moments where things go wrong. Then, as I said, you can infuse these emotions into the experience. If you decide in this moment, I want customers to feel anticipation, then you can design anticipation into that moment. We also want to make sure that we vest ownership of these moments. So for every moment that we map, we say, well, who owns this moment? Who's the moment owner? Who's going to be the custodian that the experience is orchestrated well in this moment? So the type of maps that you can do is an as-is map. But there's also difficulty in staying with the as-is. I've been leading journey mapping and journey design sessions for the last 12 years, and it's almost impossible for a team just to stay with the as-is. They want to fix stuff. They want to get to the to-be and the more aspirational maps. Then what's been amazing, one of the most amazing projects I've been a part of is when a company launches a new product or a new business, and you can design those journeys from scratch. And then there's the service blueprints, which is really your, if we think about on stage and off stage, if you watch a play, there's things that you see on the stage, but there's also a lot of things happening backstage. And your service blueprints really cover the aspects of your service that happens backstage that the customer doesn't really see, but sometimes those things permeate this line and gets onto stage, and then customers get confused. So the ideal way of mapping journeys, designing journeys, is to do it with customers. And we've done lots of customer sessions where we co-design with customers, and we combine that with a multidisciplinary internal team from the brand. And that works incredibly well. You want to keep your group as diverse as possible. Not just people from the call center, not just people from process improvement, not just people from your customer experience design team. You want to also use creative methods. So we often draw the journey on paper on the wall. We build the journey with Lego. We also build the journey with prototyping materials. So it's really important that you don't just stick to the left side of the brain, but that you get creative around these journeys. And that really unlocks that outside in, the way the customer sees the journey. All right, this is an example of one of the Lego journeys. We use a lot of Lego. One of the Lego journeys we built, and you can see here's my customer moments, and there's a little story playing off on those base plates in each of these. We've looked at what's the moment, what's the customer expectations in that moment, what is the desired emotions, how can I exceed the expectation, how can I fail the expectation, who's the moment owner, and what's happening in that backstage story. So this is another great example that shows you just a closer view of what those stories look like. And then the benefits of journey mapping. So very often I find that there's amazing alignment, where teams say, oh, is that how it works? Where there's constructive debate, where people say, no, that's definitely not how it works. And then there's corrective design, where people say, surely that's not right, let's just fix it. Critical evaluation, why do we actually do this? And then there's the opportunity to eliminate the white space. So, if time passes and 2 weeks pass, white space is never good. Now, I'm not saying spam your customers in those white spaces, but I'm saying look at some opportunities where you can use the white space to your advantage. And then there's this, innovation where you just look at it and you find better ways to do things. This is another example of a journey, and this is captured in a product called Expressia. So this is an employee journey, and you can see we just sketch noted some of the frames in here. Now, usually when the journeys are presented like this on a screen or in a PDF, they're not very inspiring. This doesn't inspire change. So we love using very vivid imagery. And if I can tell the story as if it's a comic book, that's how people are going to remember the story. So if I coach a frontline call center service agent, I can take them through the story, and I can engage with them in a way where later, when they just look at the images, they know what to do. They know what's going on there. They can identify, oh, this is one of those angry customers. All right, I need to understand where he is, and then I need to calm him down. All right, this is another example of an employee journey. And you can see this is much more of a corporate look and feel. I've got my my stages in this journey, a job hunt, I update my resume, and that goes through those stages in the journey. Now, let's quickly look at how to improve journey. So I want to smooth out the emotions that may naturally occur in the journey. So especially when there's opportunity for breakages, I want to have a look at how I can avoid that from the get-go. So when something goes wrong in the journey, I need to back up. So I find upstream solutions early in the journey. So often when I look at real journeys, where the mistake happens or where the customer is angry, I need to back up various moments and look at what happened before. Then very important, like any relationship, you want to make early investments in the relationship and get a strong start. Some of the internal customer onboarding processes that we've been involved in, you really bank a lot of love in those early moments. Then the next thing is, if you want to design innovation into your journeys, often we're not going to find that in just our solution space. You need to stretch a little bit outside of your solution space and prolong that greatness. I remember Volvo had an incredible a campaign a few years back where they had this life spray it was a reflective spray that you could spray on bicycles and on bags and on clothing, and that was really, Volvo stands for safety, and they wanted to kind of find solutions to bicycle accidents and accidents not caused by Volvos but just normal road accidents with bicycles. And they created this life spray. So that's a really good example of getting outside of your solution space. You want to also let your journey end strong. So there's a beautiful piece of work from Daniel Kahneman. He coined the peak end rule, where he says you remember the peaks in an experience and you remember the end of an experience. So although we want to smooth some of the negative emotions, we want to have a strong end. And we want to have smooth transition. So as people move from the one moment to the next moment, we don't want them to feel like they're moving, doing interplanetary travel. Then we want to remove skips, jumps, and white space. So where the customer doesn't hear from you for 3 weeks, they are going to phone you. They are going to phone you as soon as they get uncertain. Now, a lot of companies want to reduce the number of service calls. So when you look at your journeys, look at what's happening in the world of the customer and when are they going to get uncertain, and how can you intercept and really keep the relationship nice and warm in those areas where there might be white space. You want to amplify your positive peaks. Sometimes you want to reorder moments in the journey, and that creates just a very different emotion. And then very often when companies map their own journeys, they really struggle with reimagining the journey. At the moment, we're in a situation where most people are working remotely, they're working virtually, and we're looking at, some of what we do just in the traditional sense, where we need to reimagine some of this. The last few virtual journey design sessions I've led using Zoom and a myriad of tools, we can't do things necessarily exactly the way we did it when we were in the room with a group of people. And just to comment on the virtual sessions, it's absolutely possible to do amazing journey design sessions, co-design sessions with customers, design sessions online with internal teams inside companies. And I actually find that I'm able to shorten the sessions and that these sessions become so much richer because we ask people to prepare beforehand. We spend the time absolutely focused. Everyone's engaged. Everyone has a role. And we have an amazing journey that's already documented when the session is finished. So we'll do future webinars about how to facilitate these sessions online, but it has been magnificent. And I used to be the critic in the room that said, no, you need post-it notes, you need walls to do this, and you need to be face-to-face with people. And I've discovered that it is possible to really have a rich outcome doing these sessions virtually and remotely. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today. Post your comments, and it's been such a delight sharing this with you. I'm exceptionally passionate about this. This has been my life, for over a decade. And I find so much joy in helping people and empowering people to solve problems for themselves and to map the incredible journeys for their own brands. So you will see we are offering you a discount to our Journey Architect program that will be happening in a few weeks' time. There's a link. Go and check out the program. I started designing training for my internal corporate team about 12 years ago, how to train people to become customer journey design ninjas. And since then, we've evolved the program. Literally every year, we've made improvements to the program, and we now call the program the Customer Journey Architect, because that's really like an architect would design a building and design all of the detail in the building. That's what we want people in this profession to do, is like an architect, pay attention to the detail and come up with those blueprints and come up with, all of the furnishings and all of the emotion and everything, just like an architect would. So we hope that you've enjoyed this session, and I really hope to see you in the Customer Journey Architect program, which will be a blended learning model. You'll have some live classes and you'll have some group work, and you'll be part of a global community of people that are passionate about customer journey design. So thanks for joining me, and have a great day.